The night was suffocatingly quiet until a scream tore through the apartment, raw and unrestrained. Emma clutched her son Jacob against her chest, her voice cracking as she begged Mark not to leave like this. Mark said, "You pushed me too far, Emma. I'm done pretending." His words sliced sharper than the slam of the door that followed. The sirens wailing outside blurred with the pounding of her heart, a soundtrack to the unraveling of a fragile peace. Jacob whispered, "Mommy, don't cry," his small arms wrapping tighter, but she felt her strength draining. Betrayal wasn't new, yet the depth of this one hollowed her from within. Every sacrifice, every night she worked until her body gave out, every smile she faked for Jacob's sake, now felt twisted by his father's fury. She stared at the door, the silence on the other side more terrifying than the noise, wondering how much more she could endure. The apartment's silence pressed against Emma like a suffocating weight. She whispered to herself, "You have to stay strong," though her voice cracked under the strain. Jacob asked, "Is Daddy coming back?" His innocent eyes searched hers, and Emma's chest tightened. She pulled him closer, promising, "I'm here always." Her mind replayed Mark's last words, their venom staining the walls. The sirens outside faded, replaced by the sound of her shallow breathing. Shadows stretched long across the room, turning familiar corners into strange silhouettes. Emma's exhaustion seeped through her bones, yet she forced her trembling body upright. This was the beginning of a storm she could no longer avoid. She resolved that no matter how broken she felt, Jacob would never see her fall apart completely. The night dragged on, every second a reminder of the chasm Mark left behind. Emma stared at the clock, its ticking loud and cruel. Jacob dozed in her lap, but even in sleep, his small fingers clung tightly. Emma whispered, "I won't let him take you from me." The weight of her promise was heavy, but it steadied her trembling. She remembered nights working double shifts, her body aching, yet returning home just to kiss her son goodnight. Betrayal had cut deeper this time because she thought she was done bleeding. The shadows of their small apartment seemed to press in closer, but Emma lifted her chin. She would not crumble tonight. Not with Jacob's soft breath keeping her tethered to hope. The city outside hummed, but the apartment remained frozen in its sorrow. Emma whispered Jacob's name, brushing his hair from his forehead. His eyelids fluttered as he stirred. "Mom, will it be okay?" he murmured half asleep. Emma smiled weakly, replying, "Yes, baby, it will be okay." Her smile hid a storm, but her words carried enough weight to shield him from doubt. Memories of her own childhood flickered, loneliness, neglect, nights when promises were broken. She swore Jacob would never feel abandoned. The night stretched endlessly, yet inside her a spark of defiance flickered. She had been left broken before, but this time she would fight, even if it cost her everything. Dawn crept slowly into the room, painting pale streaks across the blinds. Emma sat upright, her eyes raw from sleeplessness. Jacob slept soundly now, his chest rising with steady breaths. She whispered, "You're my reason to keep fighting." The quiet morning carried no relief, only the echo of the door slamming in her memory. Yet, in the light of a new day, something stirred in her chest. Pain sharpened into resolve. The betrayal still cut deep, but its sting fueled her fire. She looked around the small apartment, the remnants of last night scattered on the floor, and clenched her fists. This was not the end. Emma breathed deeply, steadying her spirit. Her fight was only beginning, and she would not let despair claim victory. Morning light spilled weakly across the small apartment, yet Emma felt no warmth. She prepared Jacob's breakfast with shaky hands, each movement deliberate. Jacob asked, "Why isn't Daddy here?" Emma forced a smile, replying, "He had to go, but I'm here." Inside, her chest constricted as guilt and anger twisted together. The betrayal from the night before clung to her skin like a bruise. She thought of the bills stacked on the counter, each envelope heavier than the last. Her mind wandered to work, wondering if she could still hold on to the fragile job that barely kept them afloat. The silence between her and Jacob weighed, broken only by the scrape of utensils. Emma whispered under her breath, "We'll get through this," though she was uncertain how. For Jacob's sake, she had no choice but to turn her fear into armor. The phone buzzed on the counter, shattering the fragile calm. Emma hesitated before answering, her supervisor's sharp voice already echoing in her mind. The call confirmed her fears. Another missed shift could cost her the job. Emma said softly, "I'll be there, I promise," though her heart screamed otherwise. Jacob tugged at her sleeve, whispering, "Don't leave me." His plea pierced deeper than any reprimand. She crouched down, holding him close, whispering, "I have to work, baby. It's for us." Inside, she cursed the impossible balance between motherhood and survival. The weight of sacrifice pressed harder, but she smiled for Jacob, masking the storm that threatened to consume her. This was the life she had chosen, or maybe the one forced upon her. Either way, she had no time for weakness. Emma walked Jacob to school, the autumn wind tugging at her coat. She held his hand tightly, her mind racing with worries about court, work, and betrayal. Jacob said, "I'll be brave today, Mom," his small voice steady. She squeezed his hand, whispering, "I know you will, my hero." The schoolyard was alive with children's laughter, yet Emma felt like an outsider standing on the edge of normalcy. Other parents exchanged casual smiles, unaware of the war raging inside her. She kissed Jacob's forehead, lingering as if to borrow his innocence for strength. As he ran off, his blonde hair catching the light, she whispered to herself, "You're all I have." Her chest ached as she turned away, each step heavier than the last, knowing she must fight for him in a world designed to break her resolve. At work, Emma kept her head down, exhaustion painted across her features. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh against her weary eyes. Her co-worker Lisa whispered, "You look like hell." "And?" Emma forced a laugh, replying, "Just another day." Inside, her thoughts spun, replaying Mark's cruel words and the door slamming. Her hands trembled as she sorted through files, each paper a reminder of the life slipping beyond her control. The manager's gaze lingered, cold and impatient, as though waiting for her to falter. She whispered to herself, "Don't give them a reason." Every moment was a battle against breaking down, but she carried Jacob's image in her mind like a shield. The world demanded strength she didn't have, yet she had no choice but to find it. Evening fell heavy as Emma returned to the apartment, shoulders sagging from the day's weight. Jacob greeted her with a smile, running into her arms. His hug, warm and unrelenting, melted her exhaustion, if only for a moment. He said, "I missed you so much, Mommy." She whispered back, "I missed you too, more than anything." The shadows in the room seemed lighter with his laughter. Yet as she tucked him into bed, her heart still carried the echo of Mark's absence and the sting of her supervisor's warning. She kissed Jacob's forehead, whispering, "Sleep safe, my love." The night pressed close again, but Emma stared at her son, finding strength in his breath. Tomorrow's battles loomed, but tonight she allowed herself a fragile peace. The chill of betrayal lingered as Emma unlocked the door that evening, her heart thudding louder than the key in the lock. On the table lay an envelope, her name scribbled in Mark's familiar hand. She tore it open, dread twisting inside her. Inside were court papers, his demand for full custody. Emma whispered, "No, not like this." Jacob ran up asking, "What's wrong, Mommy?" She forced her lips to curve, answering, "Nothing. Sweetheart, go wash up." Her hands trembled as she hid the papers in her bag. Every line screamed his intention to take Jacob away, to erase her sacrifices. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, suffocating with fear. She pressed a hand against her chest, whispering, "He won't take you, Jacob, not now, not ever." But in the silence, her own doubt clawed deep. Emma sat across from Lisa at a quiet cafe, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup she barely tasted. Lisa leaned in, whispering, "He's trying to take Jacob. That's insane." Emma nodded, her voice low. "He won't stop until he's broken me." Lisa placed a hand on hers, saying, "Then don't let him." Emma looked down, her reflection fractured in the cup's surface. Memories of Mark's anger replayed like broken film reels, every word another cut. The cafe's chatter faded as Emma's world tunneled into panic. She forced herself to breathe, clinging to Lisa's steady presence. "I have to fight," she said finally, her words trembling yet resolute. Lisa squeezed her hand firmly, a silent vow of support. For the first time, Emma felt the fragile stir of hope. That night, Emma searched through old boxes in the closet, desperation guiding her hands. She pulled out worn photographs, each image a reminder of broken promises. Jacob's laughter echoed from the other room, but the pasta's weight drowned her. She found an old letter from Mark, once full of devotion, now bitterly ironic. Emma whispered bitterly, "You swore forever." The tears came unbidden, sliding down her face. She slammed the box shut, her body shaking. The ghosts of their love taunted her, whispering that she had failed. But as she wiped her face, her jaw set with steel. Betrayal was no longer her cage, it was her weapon. If Mark wanted war, she would fight, armed with scars he could never erase. The following day, Emma sat in her lawyer's office, papers stacked high between them. The lawyer, Mr. Harris, leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. "Mark has filed aggressively. This will not be easy." Emma's stomach twisted, but she met his gaze. "He won't win," she said firmly, though her voice trembled. Harris studied her, nodding. "Then we need to prepare, every detail, every witness." Emma felt the weight of the fight pressing down. She thought of Jacob, his smile, his laughter, his innocence. That was what she fought for. Her hands clenched into fists on her lap. I'll do whatever it takes." Harris gave a grim smile, scribbling notes. For Emma, the war had begun, and there was no turning back. Back home, Emma sat at the edge of Jacob's bed, watching his steady breaths as he slept. His innocence was both her anchor and her greatest vulnerability. She whispered softly, "You're my whole world, Jacob." Her hand brushed his hair gently, her eyes burning with determination. She thought of Mark's manipulations, the lies he had already begun weaving. Anger burned hot, but love burned brighter. She swore silently that Jacob would never be a pawn in Mark's revenge. Emma leaned down, kissing his forehead, whispering, "I'll protect you always." The night pressed against the window, heavy and dark, but Emma's heart sparked with defiance. The battle was near, but she was ready to stand, scars and all. The courthouse loomed ahead, its stone walls cold and unforgiving. Emma gripped Jacob's hand tightly before letting Lisa take him outside. She whispered, "Be strong for me," though her own knees trembled. Inside, Mark stood tall, his smirk cutting through her composure. The judge entered, silence consuming the room like a heavy shroud. Emma's lawyer whispered, "Stay calm, speak truth." She nodded, forcing her breath to steady. Her heart raced as the clerk called the case, every word etching the reality deeper. She was fighting for her son's future. The courtroom felt more like a battlefield, every glance a weapon, every breath a shield. Emma whispered to herself, "I won't lose him," as she lifted her chin, ready to face the storm. Emma took the stand, her hands gripping the wooden edge. The lawyer asked, "Why do you believe Jacob belongs with you?" Emma swallowed, her voice steady. "Because I've been there every day, every night. His laughter, his fears, his dreams, I know them all." Mark shifted in his seat, eyes rolling, but Emma pressed on. She recalled nights working double shifts, mornings walking Jacob to school, afternoons spent helping him with homework. Each word became her shield against the lies Mark had sown. The judge listened, pen poised, expression unreadable. Emma said firmly, "I am his safe place, his constant. I may be flawed, but my love has never wavered." The room stilled, her truth cutting through the noise like steel. Mark's lawyer rose, voice sharp as knives. "Isn't it true you've struggled financially, Miss Collins?" Emma's chest tightened, but she answered, "Yes, but Jacob never went without. He pressed harder, and you've left him alone while working nights." Emma's voice trembled. "Only when I had no choice." Mark smirked, his silence louder than words. The lawyer continued, painting Emma as unfit, her sacrifices twisted into weapons. She clenched her fists, anger flashing. She wanted to shout, to tear apart the lies, but she steadied her breath. The judge's eyes flickered between them, weighing every syllable. Emma whispered in her mind, "They won't see me as weak. They'll see me as a mother who fights." Outside the courtroom during recess, Emma leaned against the wall, trembling hands covering her face. Lisa appeared, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "You're stronger than this," she whispered. Emma shook her head, whispering, "He's twisting everything I've done." Lisa gripped her arms, steadying her. "Because he knows he's losing. Don't let him break you now." Emma inhaled deeply, drawing strength from her friend's fire. She looked through the glass doors where Jacob sat with a social worker, his small figure fragile in the big chair. She whispered, "He's my reason, my strength." Lisa nodded, replying, "Then fight like hell." Emma straightened her spine, the weight still there but no longer crushing. As the hearing resumed, Emma's lawyer called Lisa to the stand. Lisa spoke clearly, "I've watched Emma raise Jacob alone. Every sacrifice she's made proves she is his anchor." Mark shifted uncomfortably, his smirk fading. The lawyer pressed further, asking Lisa about Emma's devotion. "She never gave up, not once," Lisa replied firmly. Emma's eyes filled with tears, gratitude swelling as she listened. For the first time, the courtroom didn't feel like her enemy. The truth was bleeding through, undeniable and raw. Mark's fists clenched, his facade cracking. Emma whispered silently, "This is our chance." Hope flickered in her chest, fragile but steady. The fight was far from over, but for the first time she felt like she could win. Emma sat alone at the kitchen table, court papers spread before her like weapons aimed at her chest. The apartment was quiet except for Jacob's soft snoring from the next room. A sudden knock at the door shattered the stillness. Emma froze, dread clawing her spine. When she opened it, a woman stood there, weathered and familiar. Her aunt Margaret, whom she hadn't seen in years. Emma whispered, "Why are you here?" Margaret's eyes softened. "Because you need me now." Memories of estrangement burned, but so did the pull of family. Emma's breath caught, torn between anger and relief. The past she thought buried stood before her, promising answers and reopening wounds. For the first time, the fight no longer felt hers alone. Emma and Margaret sat across from one another, the table heavy with silence. Margaret broke it with a sigh. "I know I wasn't there when you needed me, but I've been watching from afar." Emma's voice cracked. "Why now?" Margaret leaned forward. "Because Mark isn't who you think he is. He has secrets I can help you expose." Emma's eyes narrowed, torn between mistrust and hope. "You left me when I needed family most," she whispered. Margaret's eyes brimmed with regret. "And I'll never forgive myself. Let me help you protect Jacob." Emma clenched her fists, emotions battling inside her. Trusting Margaret meant reopening scars, but it also meant gaining a weapon against Mark. Margaret pulled an envelope from her coat, sliding it across the table. "I've kept records, letters, documents, proof of his lies," she said firmly. Emma's hands trembled as she opened it, scanning papers that painted Mark's deception in stark ink. Her chest tightened with both rage and relief. "Why didn't you bring this sooner?" Emma demanded. Margaret lowered her eyes. "I thought I could protect you by staying away. I was wrong." Emma's jaw clenched, every breath ragged. This was the leverage she needed, yet it came at the cost of reopening wounds she had spent years burying. She whispered, "If this is true, it could save Jacob." Margaret nodded. "It's true. And it's time he faced the consequences." Emma paced the living room, papers clutched tight, her breath uneven. Jacob peeked out from his room, sleepy-eyed. "Mom, is everything okay?" Emma forced a smile, kneeling to hug him. "Yes, baby, everything's fine." Her voice wavered, but she shielded him with a soft kiss. Margaret watched quietly, her eyes glistening with regret and admiration. "He deserves the truth," she said softly. Emma looked back at Jacob, whispering, "He deserves peace." Her mind raced. These papers could change everything, but they could also bring danger. Trusting Margaret was a gamble, but Emma knew her son's safety was worth every risk. She kissed Jacob's forehead, whispering, "You'll be safe, I promise." Her voice carried both fear and fire. Later that night, Emma stood by the window, city lights glowing faintly against the dark sky. Margaret joined her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to do this alone anymore," she said softly. Emma's eyes stayed fixed on the horizon, her reflection fractured in the glass. "I don't know if I can trust you," she admitted. Margaret's voice broke with sincerity. "Then trust that I love him too." Emma exhaled sharply, emotions colliding within her. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel the weight of shared burden. She turned, nodding slowly. "Then help me fight." Margaret's eyes glistened, a quiet vow of redemption. Together, they faced the night, allies bound by blood and broken promises. The courtroom air was heavy, silence pressing against Emma's chest as she sat at the plaintiff's table. Margaret's documents lay stacked neatly, her lifeline in this battle. Mark sat across from her, his smug confidence unshaken. The judge's gavel struck, and the trial resumed. Emma whispered to herself, "Stay steady, stay strong." Her lawyer rose, presenting evidence that revealed Mark's financial deceit. Mark's jaw tightened, but his eyes still gleamed with arrogance. The judge leaned forward, scrutinizing each line, while the gallery whispered. Emma's palms were damp, but her spine stayed straight. This was the moment everything turned. For Jacob's future, she would not falter. She exhaled deeply, whispering, "He can't win, not this time." Emma took the stand again, her voice trembling at first, but growing steadier with each word. "I've been Jacob's constant, through every sickness, every fear, every triumph." Mark's lawyer cut in sharply, but she left him alone while working late shifts. Emma's chest burned, but she answered, "I sacrificed sleep, comfort, and myself so he could have a better life." "That's not neglect, it's love." Gasps filled the room, and Mark's eyes darkened. Emma felt tears threatening, but she steadied herself. This was her truth, raw and unshakable. The judge's pen paused mid-note, his gaze locked on her. Emma lifted her chin, whispering under her breath, "For you, Jacob." The lawyer revealed Margaret's evidence, placing documents before the judge. These records prove Mark concealed assets and fabricated stability. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Mark shot up, face red, shouting, "That's a lie." The judge slammed his gavel, commanding order. Emma glanced at Margaret, who nodded silently, her eyes steady. For the first time, Mark's confidence cracked. His fists clenched as his lawyer tried to regain control, but the damage was done. Emma whispered to herself, "The truth is stronger than his lies." The weight she carried began to shift, replaced by fragile hope. The war was far from won, but for the first time Mark bled in the fight. During cross-examination, Mark's mask crumbled. His lawyer asked questions, but his answers grew defensive, bitter, laced with venom. "She's weak, unfit," he spat, but the words sounded desperate. The judge's eyes narrowed, unimpressed by his outburst. Emma watched, heart pounding, as the man who once controlled her narrative exposed his own cruelty. Margaret whispered from behind, "He's unraveling." Emma's lawyer leaned in, murmuring, "Stay calm, we're winning." Emma's hands gripped the table as relief and fear tangled inside her. The battle was shifting, but she knew victory wasn't secure until the final gavel fell. Still, for the first time, Mark looked small, and Emma, though trembling, felt taller than ever. The final arguments echoed in the courtroom. Emma's lawyer spoke with steady conviction. "This is not about wealth or appearances. It's about love, sacrifice, and the child's safety." "Emma has proven she is Jacob's anchor," Mark's lawyer countered, but his words fell flat, drowned by the truth revealed. Emma sat still, Jacob's face etched in her heart. Her body shook with exhaustion, but her eyes burned with unyielding fire. The judge's gaze swept the room, expression unreadable. Silence descended, thicker than stone, as the gavel struck to end the session. Emma whispered, "We're almost there, Jacob," her voice cracking but resolute. The battle had reached its peak, and the outcome lay just ahead. The courtroom was hushed as the judge read his decision. Emma's breath hitched, her nails digging into her palms. "Custody is granted to the mother, Emma Collins," the judge declared. Relief crashed into her like a tidal wave, but so did exhaustion. She closed her eyes, whispering, "We did it, Jacob." Mark slammed his fist against the table, his face twisted with rage. Emma didn't look at him. Her gaze was fixed forward, unbroken. Her lawyer touched her arm gently, saying, "It's over." Tears slipped silently down her cheeks, a mixture of triumph and grief. Victory was hers, but the scars of the battle etched deep. She whispered again, softer, "We're free now, baby." Outside the courthouse, Emma stepped into the sunlight, shielding her eyes as if seeing the world anew. Jacob ran into her arms, his laughter piercing the heavy air. "Mommy, you won," he cried. Emma held him close, whispering, "We won, my love." Margaret stood nearby, her eyes glistening, silent pride etched in her features. Lisa joined them, squeezing Emma's shoulder. The war was over, but Emma felt the ache of everything lost along the way. She looked down at Jacob, his innocence a light that cut through the shadows. "We'll start fresh," she said, more to herself than anyone else. Her heart carried scars, but it also carried strength. The future, though uncertain, finally belonged to them. That evening, Emma sat in the quiet of their apartment, papers stacked neatly away. The chaos was gone, replaced by fragile stillness. Jacob played on the floor with his toys, his laughter soft and pure. Emma whispered, "This is what I fought for." Margaret brewed tea in the kitchen, her presence no longer distant but steady. Lisa dropped by, carrying takeout, saying, "To new beginnings." Emma smiled faintly, exhaustion still heavy in her bones. They ate together, a patchwork family, bound not by perfection, but by resilience. For the first time in years, Emma felt the flicker of peace. The war had ended, and though she was scarred, she was no longer broken. Later that night, Emma tucked Jacob into bed. He looked up at her with wide eyes and whispered, "Are we safe now?" Emma brushed his hair back gently, answering, "Yes, baby, we're safe." He smiled sleepily, his small hand holding hers until his eyes closed. Emma lingered, watching his chest rise and fall, her heart heavy with both love and sorrow. She whispered softly, "You're my strength always." The room was bathed in soft lamplight, shadows retreating at last. She kissed his forehead and pulled the blanket higher, sealing him in warmth. For the first time, the night did not feel suffocating. It felt like a promise kept, a vow fulfilled. Emma stood by the window, city lights twinkling in the distance. The silence of the night wrapped around her, no longer suffocating but calm. She whispered, "We're stronger now," her reflection faint in the glass. Margaret sat quietly behind her, sipping tea, while Jacob's soft breaths echoed from the bedroom. Emma placed a hand on his doorframe, her heart swelling. Every wound, every scar had led her here. She smiled, not the mask she once wore, but something real, something whole. She whispered again, "We'll never stop fighting." The night stretched ahead, uncertain but open. Emma exhaled deeply, at peace in her own strength, ready to face tomorrow with Jacob by her side.